The different peel and sticks with which you will work will vary in quality and functionality. This happens to be a very forgiving product. It's a peel and stick. This is my peel and stick series. What do I mean by forgiving? Number one, you've done peel and stick, right? The first sheet you put up, right? Tell me the truth. Didn't the backing stick to each other? And then you try to pull it off and you had a disaster. You know when you open up saran wrap and you open it up and you go to cut it and the elasticity backfires and it kind of clings to each other? What do? You take it and you throw it out, right? In reality, when you open saran wrap, it would be easier if you had two people open it up so that you could keep the plastic from attaching to itself like static electricity. Folks, the same rule applies here. This peel and stick happens to be forgiving insofar as this. Let me show you. All right, this has no glue on it, no nothing. This is scrap. You do this to most peel and stick products, let me tell you what you're going to get. A bunch of stress marks on the color. The color would be ruined, okay? And it would be completely wrinkled beyond usability. Join me as I install this. Bring them down here. Coming close. Yesterday's video wasn't close enough. No estuvo suficiente cerca. Yo quiero que ellos puedan ver la línea aquí. And in the peel and stick videos, I emphasize to leave a space in your seam. Coming close. You see that space there? Leave it there. We'll come back when this is ready to be laid down. It's not ready yet. Okay, so leave a space. Like I said on the other video, if you try to hang peel and stick without glue, you're absolutely playing with fire. Humor me. Take a long piece of saran wrap and try to install it, a long piece, 5 feet. Take a 5 feet piece of saran wrap out of your saran wrap and try to install that on your wall. That's what peel and stick is like if you don't use glue. You know what it is? The manufacturers don't want to tell you to do this for some reason. They're not ready to say, hey, put some glue under this. I'm going to tell you why. Peel and stick, like anything else, is a product that wants to be, the makers of which want to make profit and sell it. The selling point is that it's removable. That's what they tell you. You're trying to remove certain peel and sticks from your wall. You're going to take down, they're so sticky, they're going to take down your paint, your texture. They're not removable. They're removable like anything else, like a tooth. You can remove a tooth, not without pain though. So the manufacturer wants to tell you that it's removable. It's not removable, practically speaking. You need to use glue in order to make the product practical. Now they're not going to say use glue, because then you'll say to them, why don't I just get regular wallpaper? They would have to say, yeah. Indulge me. You will see certain manufacturers will make this in peel and stick, and then they'll make it in conventional wall covering. Why is that? Because you, the consumer, thinks that there's a difference that's beneficial to yourself. Rather than try to educate the public, they simply provide you with a choice between conventional wall covering and peel and stick. because nobody in his right mind would make this stuff if he had to install it. Can I get that corner? Okay, folks, remember, use your pants, whatever you gotta do, your arm. Make sure this has no grit on it, okay? Because if you should slide grit on it, you could be making a nice 20-inch scratch on your wall covering. So you always wanna make sure that it's clean, all right? Now, just a recap for those of you who haven't watched my sequence in order. I leave a gap in my seams so that I can come back and join them rather than when they expand to have to separate them. These things are expanding, okay? Even though there's no backing on peel and stick, it's expanding a little bit, and by the time I come back to this in 10-15 minutes, it's doing what I call pursing. It's pushing up against each other, and that's very difficult to separate. You practically have to take the sheet off again. So, leave a space and let it expand. So you make marks on your wall, right, with pencil? Never use a pen making marks on your wall. For those of you do-it-yourselfers, don't use a marker like a Sharpie. Never use blue. Don't use a ballpoint pen. Only use a pencil. Let me show you something. Some of your wall covering is transparent and it takes on the color underneath it because it's thin. And so if you make pencil marks on the wall, when you plan out your wall like I do, you'll find that you have pencil marks on the wall. But if you should take your wall covering, I'll show you. If you should take your wall covering, just look at that mark there. How would you like your wall covering expert to leave a pencil mark behind the wall cover? Now, it's excusable for a do-it-yourselfer. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, I'm going to tell you how to remove those marks, which are necessary when you're planning out. If you say, well, I'll just use tape, well, you might pull off part of your wall with the tape, okay? You see that mark? All I want you to do is put some glue on it while you're doing the rest of the wall and just wipe it off with a wet cloth. And so, you just go to one of them that has had the glue on it. Just come in close. Comes right up, but you have to let the glue grab the graphite off of the wall. You know? The longer you leave the glue, the easier it comes off. Just a tip and a trick for you, for those of you who said, uh-oh, my pencil marks are showing through my wall covering. That's all. We're gonna leave these on so that the glue can do the work and my hand doesn't have to. Continuing on with sheet number 3 on this very easy to install peel and stick. Okay, so when you have your next seam, this we're letting it float, okay? This we can still move quite easily. I press it down really hard so that it's not inclined to move anymore. Some of your peel and stick products bounce. Bounce? Watch this, come in close. I just put this sheet up and we have a little mismatch going on. Let me show you what I mean by bouncing in. Watch what happens when I pull it down. Okay, looking at this right here, watch this. See that? It bounces. Now when you do your lines, this is what could make you get frustrated. Not taking into account the flexibility of your wallpaper, okay? So it's very important that when you set the wall covering in place to line up, that when you pull it down, if it doesn't stay and it bounces up, I want you to put as much pressure on it as you would need to pull it down past where you're looking to get it, so that it simply bounces back up to where it's needed, okay? Let's see if I can show you a greater manifestation of this reality down here. Okay, here we go, right here. So we're matched here, you see this? And so we're off a little here. You see that mismatch? And you'll see that if I don't accommodate the wall covering for its peculiarities, I'm going to have a mismatch. Okay, so we're matching here, and we're matching here now. But we have a buckle, right? Get rid of that buckle and pull your wallpaper apart again. You definitely don't set it, please believe me. Don't set it right after you hang it. Leave a space. This is going to close up on itself, but then you're going to come back, like I'm going to come back in a few minutes here. This was installed 10 minutes ago. You're going to come back to it and do the final, because it's moving. It's moving this way, it's moving that way. Enough of that. So you want to be perfect and you want to anticipate movement, and so you're going to leave a space. And so this segment of the video has to do with bouncing or elasticity in your peel and stick product. Some of it has no elasticity at all. Others is very bouncy like this one. And so what I was saying on the video before when it was very noisy is this we're leaving floating. I call it floating because we can move it. This over here, this was nailed down. This is the right side of the last sheet. Now we're going to nail this one down. That's what I call it. Nailing it down, meaning making it permanent. This is floating because we're still going to come back and move it. But this we're going to nail down, okay? Because I'm a lefty, I'm working from my left to my right. My left is always fluid. It can move because I want to go back and put it in place. Okay. If you're a righty, you'll probably want to work opposite. You'll keep your right side floating and you'll nail your left one down. Note I'm always wiping off my smoother. Any grit gets on your hands, gets onto the wall covering, and then you do this, you'll slide. I don't care if it's like a piece of salt. You can slide a piece of salt all across this color, take it right off. And so this is what I leave till the end on my peel and stick installations. Those seams are one of your biggest problems on peel and stick installations. This is far more separated than I left it 45 minutes ago. But it proves my point to you that it doesn't pay to mend the seams until you're ready to do so. And only you can determine that. You can see that the paper has joined itself here, but up there is quite separated. And so I suggest to you that you take the time and you simply don't go too ahead of yourself, become familiar with your product, and don't join your seams all at once. Don't do it right away. Bring them within a 1/16 of an inch, and they may either come close to each other or may separate depending on the humidity, the glue underneath it. There's many factors. But I can tell you that in every case, you should leave yourself a little space so that your wall covering doesn't overlap. It is far worse when your wall covering overlaps than when it's separated. You can always move it over like this rather than pull it away. It's very hard to pull it away. Okay, that's your secret, very important tip in this whole video. I would say it's the most important one. I hope you like the pattern. I do. But the important thing as paper hangers is that we have to get the mechanics down in order to do it right. Show them the seam. This is what I call pursed. It's together and it's pushing up toward me. Pull it out. You got all your glue cleaned off of it. If you're a husband and wife team, one of you has cleaned it down. The other one comes in with a very thin smoother that I purchased from Harbor Freight. And bring those seams as close as physically possible. Okay, that's all. Same thing down there. No cheating. Now, some patterns you don't see a seam. Other patterns you do. Your job as a hanger is to make sure that your seams are as close physically that can be without the seam coming up toward you. Sometimes that means you're going to see it. Come in close, please. That is the best we're going to get that seam, okay? All I got to do as a paper hanger is, number one, get all the glue out from underneath it, make it the same level, flush with each other. Come in close, you're zooming in. Get it as close as possible. I know that if I go closer, look what starts happening. I'm wrinkling my seam. Therefore, I know I've done my best, okay? Pull that away from each other and be happy that it looks so good. If you drive yourself nuts, you gotta call me. Okay, same thing up here. Wipe it down, give it your final push toward each other. You see, that's too close, obviously, right? So you know that that's perfect. That's perfect for this material, okay? That's all. If you overdo your seams with some materials, you might take off the color. Don't do that. If you're a perfectionist, if this is your first time doing wallpaper, I suggest you don't do it. Because you'll try to overdo it. A perfectionist means well, but they don't understand what is the limit of the product with which they're working. And so a perfectionist will think that he or she can do better when the product is limited. It's limited, okay? Once again, let's prove my point again, okay? You see a line there? I can see it. I don't like lines. I don't want to see lines. But I want to join it closer. Look what happens as soon as I put slight pressure on it. The seam reveals itself in a very unsightly manner. So it starts pursing. It starts coming up. So I simply lay it down and understand that that's the best I'm going to get it, okay? That's not on you. It's not on anything. It's just nature, okay? Now I'm going to go down each one, give it its final pass, I call it. Avoiding my seam that I just set. I don't want to put any pressure on it either way by pushing on it or pulling on it. In this clip, what I want you to remember is that when you do your final pass, on your seams with your smoother, remember that you don't want to overwork your seams. You have to find out what is the toleration level on your seams in order that you don't stress the color off of the seam. Some stuff can really tolerate a lot of friction. Other stuff can't. And so all I'm saying while this video is going on, that I've chosen to do a voiceover, is to be careful that you know whether or not your seams can take the friction of passing with the smoother one last time. I do 3 times. The first pass is to get the major air bubbles out. The second pass is to get any excess glue out from underneath the wall covering. And the third pass is, along with the final wipe down of the product, I simply take my smoother at a very low angle, 10 to 15 degree angle against the wall, and I pull it as hard as the wall covering will permit in order to remove any glue that's excess and any water. What this does is it gives me the greatest assurance that it's not going to move when I leave the job site. And that's all I'm covering while I'm talking in this video clip. Have to be done, okay? My helper has gotten all the glue off of it. All I gotta do now is come in and put the final touch on with my clean hand. We have a stubborn seam here. I'm crisscrossing. Why? I want to bring the seams together, but I don't want to pass them. And there goes my color coming off. You see? You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So you have to know what your toleration is here. In this clip, what you're looking at me doing is moving the seams a hairline. At this point of the installation, I'm almost done laying down my seams. And the only way to do it with this material on this particular day, given the environmental circumstances, the humidity, the water on the product, the water underneath it, the glue underneath it, I had to go at a perpendicular angle toward the seam, as you can see me doing here, because I want to move that seam close where you can't see it. And so generally you go in the letter X. You go from top left down to bottom right, top right down to bottom left in an X pattern. When you have to really move that seam though, you see how I'm doing the X right there? When you really have to move that seam over, you want to go perpendicular, which is what I'm doing right there. Right there, that's perpendicular to the seam. That's so that you want to get the seam together and on top of each other. So our seam meets here, but it's a little off there. This is, if you could look at this on a microscope, you'd see this. So you're not going to get this with any broad smoother or a broad tool. You want to literally, where it's separating, you want to take literally a finger or two. Watch this. You see that? If I take a tool like this, I'm going to bring it together where it should be, and I'm going to overlap it where it shouldn't be, okay? This is your last tedious part of this project. You're literally just moving it with 1/4 of an inch of a tool, which is your finger. I know it's tedious, but that's what it would take to get that seam together. And then when you get it touching where it should be, then you can take your smoother and drag it down. But also I'll use the bottom of my palm to get a little more force on it. See that? And then I'll take a little water, put it on it. Because it's really dry now, it can scratch easily. And just put a little pressure on it. Just lay it down and finesse it. So I'm good here, but I'm a little over here. So it's going to take a little back and forth with your fingers, with this tool. But when you're done, it's worth it. Now with a dry rag, because it's too slippery for me to slide my finger on, dry rag will now push that in. That's all. You work it like that, you get it to meet before she dries on you, because after it dries, your seam is set.